Hello, hello, hello. How's everyone doing? How's everybody doing tonight? I hope that you are well. I am well. It's a great day here on the East Coast. How are you doing on this Monday evening? Welcome to the Counseling Corner. If it's your first time here, my name is Sheila Ingram, and I am really for real, a real counselor. Some people say, is she really a counselor? What's those letters up there? Well, listen, I'm a licensed professional counselor. I've been doing it for around 30 years and happy to be here with you tonight at the Counseling Corner at Bravo with Sheila Network. It is a wonderful day because we are alive. And I see you guys. Some of you are already here. It is a good thing to see you, see you, see you, see you. Hello, hello, Anaya. And hello there, all of you up in the bleachers, up in the balcony, in cyber, whatever it is you call it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the Counseling Corner here on Monday evening. Shaw 144 is in the house tonight. Thank you so much for being here. My ride or die is here. She is here in the chat, and all of you wonderful people are here tonight, and we are going to be chatting, about some things that, we need to talk about. We just need to talk about it. And so I wanted to share with you about, I really wanted to recap a little bit about the ambiguous loss because it kind of has a segue, or it can kind of correlate with what we're going to talk about tonight, which is disenfranchised grief. And, many of us have dealt with so much. Sometimes you might hear me always talk about people who suffer in silence, right? People who we think is okay, but they're suffering in silence. Hello, Lady Navo. It's good to see you. And we talk about people who, people's temperaments cause them to sometimes have a drawback spirit, or just they're introverted, right? And then we have those who are extroverts, right? And so when we're not paying attention to the people around us, our families and co-workers, whoever, people in general, we think we know what a person is dealing with, or we think we can pinpoint how a person is wired because of the behavior, but behavior can be totally misleading and misguiding. And so, because I can't take you where I haven't been, right? I am one that have dealt with both disenfranchised grief as well as ambiguous loss. And so, because I understand it and because I understand the severity of it, I just felt to share with you. Sometimes I have to sit quiet and, and pray and ask the Lord, like, what should we talk about? What do I need to share about? And sometimes the best way to express something and to share something is to express what you've gone through and to express something that you had to navigate through. And many, many people, both men and women, children, it doesn't matter the age, many suffer in silence on different levels, right? And so I want to talk about, I want to just recap the ambiguous loss, and then we're going to segue right into disenfranchised grief, which I think is so very important. And I know when we talked about the ambiguous loss, I think it was last Monday or Monday before last, in the chat, people were identifying with it so strongly, never knowing really what the label was, what the title of what they were feeling or living with. And then when we began to share, they began to just pinpoint things within their heart, mind, and soul that they had been living with. And they quite didn't understand all this time until we spoke about it. And they said, that's it. That's that feeling. That's what I've gone through. That's what I've been living with. And so my goal and my purpose is always to edify and to enrich and to make sure that we are moving from pain to power and from power to victory. And so before we go any further, I can hear Ene in my head saying, Sheila, put up the disclaimer. There you go. There you go. So listen, I want to really get into this. I want to share with you don't want to be with you so super long. It's a Monday evening, and I think this is a great night to really talk on this counseling level. This is not the regular, the Bravo Network has different platforms now and different information, different content. And so tonight I have designated Mondays, not every Monday, I'll try to do the best that I can, to the counseling corner. The counseling corner. I see you, Anna. Anna, I've been rehearsing her name. I've been rehearsing her name. I've been rehearsing her name, but listen, so tonight it is the counseling corner. Tomorrow night, I have an incredible guest. Wednesday, 12 noon at the Kabod. We're studying the book of Romans, and we have been having a really great time. Noonday power break at the Kabod over there on Word Thursday at the SIM broadcast network. You can try to go over there if you want to. Skip on over and hit the subscribe, or just check us out on Wednesday at 12 noon. And then Thursday mornings, we come back early Thursday morning. We come back and we do progressive revelation. And we're at the end of the 7 dispensations. We'll be doing that Friday morning. We're at the end. We're at the dispensation of grace. And that's on the Christian channel. That's on the SI network over there, the Sheila Ingram Ministry broadcast. You can check that out. But I'm excited to be here with you tonight to chat a little bit about the inner health, our mental health, and how we can understand sometimes some of the dynamics that we have to walk through, fight through, navigate through in this thing called life, because life be lifing, and we have to keep up. We have to learn how to stay in step. We have to learn how to shift and pause and think about where we are, right? In order to stay healthy in our inmost being. So let's just do a quick recap. Just do a quick recap on ambiguous loss, because it's still a grieving, and we're talking about grief. So we can say this is like the second part 2 of what we did with ambiguous loss. So ambiguous loss is a person's profound sense of loss and sadness that is not associated with death of a loved one. It is not associated with death. It means you didn't go to the funeral. The person is still alive somewhere, right? And it can be a loss of emotional connection as well, when a person's physical presence remains, or when that emotional connection remains, but a physical connection is lost, right? So there's different types of ambiguous loss. There's a list. Someone could have Alzheimer's. Someone can go away to the service and you don't know if they're dead or alive, out there fighting for the country. Someone can be abducted. You know they're still alive. You don't know if they are, but you haven't buried them. So it's an ambiguous loss. So ambiguous loss is actually a person, where they are still present. Like you can take care of a loved one. They can be just as chipper and happy. Someone can have an illness, cancer, and it starts to really deplete their strength, their mind, their body. And you actually see them physically deleting in front of you, dying in front of you from the illness. So that ambiguous loss, you begin to feel a loss, because you've lost that person, even though they are present. So let's just go real quick. Let me just put this up for a moment, and then we can go. And I just want to do a recap. The navigating ambiguous loss. Navigating ambiguous loss is like an unwelcome guest who takes up residence in one's life and refuses to leave, causing ongoing distress and confusion. Types of ambiguous loss occurs when there is no closure or conclusion to a significant event or loss. We have to seek counseling. We have to seek counseling to cope with this type of grief. There are so many levels of grief, my sisters and brothers. There's so many layers of what we travel through in this thing called life. Ambiguous loss occurs when a person experiences a loss that is unclear or lacks resolution, right? Again, counseling can help this. Counseling can help it. Now, common coping mechanisms is establish a routine or structure. With ambiguous loss, it's important that you break the cycle and you do something. You force yourself or get in a group where you can do something to break that whole mundane type of situation that's going on in your life, right? So you establish a routine or structure and find healthy ways to express emotions, healthy ways. Sometimes people can be around us, people can actually live with us, and we can be in some deep stuff within our hearts, mind, and soul, and they don't even know it, because sometimes we mask, right? We all wear these different masks, and it appears that we're okay, but ambiguous loss is something really, really, really deep. I have a deep a close friend who has had a bout with cancer for a long time, almost died, back again, gone again, back again, to the point that it has caused him to totally just withdraw from the person that he was, totally withdraw from his family, his children, his wife, because of this illness. And the wife now is saying, like, and I'm saying this is ambiguous loss that she's going through, because she's lost her husband, even though he's physically in the house. So I just wanted to share that with you about ambiguous loss. Tonight, we are talking about disenfranchised grief. Grief comes in different colors, different shades, different sizes. Grief comes and knocks on our door on different levels, right? But disenfranchised grief is a tricky little thing. And because sometimes we can't put a finger on certain things within us, we have to understand we don't have to. Let me not use the word have to. We should understand. It would be nice for us to understand some of the dynamics and things that's going on in our lives so that we can have a better mental health, right? And so disenfranchised grief, what does it mean? Let's get into it. You guys should know me. I always come with notes. I'm right here with you. But I love solid information. Of course, I know what I'm talking about, but I love to give you strong, solid information from some of the psychiatrists and some of the great PhD people that have studied this on a strong level. So let's jump into it. We grieve, listen to me, we grieve when we lose something important to us we cared about, right? Grief can be difficult and a painful experience. As I said in opening, I have dealt with ambiguous loss. I have also dealt with disenfranchised grief. So I have lived in both of those houses. For years, I have lived in those houses, right? And this one here is very tricky, because I'm going to share with you why it's very tricky, because it's not a telltale, yet it is, but it's not. Listen to me and stay with me. Listen. So what happens if a person, friends, family, members, employees, employers, colleagues, or community members don't acknowledge their grief or consider it to be, here's the word, legitimate? Legitimate. For instance, if someone loses their dog, people might not understand. They might not understand why they're grieving as though they have lost a child. Stop, pause, and reflect right there. When I said that I have lived in both of these houses, I've lived in this house on different levels, but most recently, I lost my dog that I had had for 15 years, my little tiny Maxie girl. I had her since she was 6 months old. It was her, me and Maxie's. And those of you that love animals or have had a pet or had a dog, and that dog has gone to doggy heaven, I don't know about you, but what a morning that I have gone through. It has been just coming up on a year that she has been gone. And I tell you, if people could love like a dog loves, I know you're saying I'm a little off. No, I'm not. Dogs love you so unconditionally. And so when Maxie girl passed away, I never in my life imagined that I would grieve and go through the pain in my heart from her loss. Right? So as she's gone now and months pass, and people, I would mention that, and people like, it's only a dog. What do you mean? So here's the pivot and the point of a disenfranchised grief, because I'm going through it, because society doesn't recognize it as a loss because it's not a human being per se, but because I was internalizing and going through a really rough time, a really hard time with Maxie. I ran into some of her new coats that when I used to travel to Europe to do ministry, I would go into those beautiful little dog stores and come back with shearlings for her and all kind of furs for her. She was a tiny, a teacup, and the tags are still on it. And I ran into it the other day and I was like, oh God, Maxie, I miss you. But what it was is I gauged that I had got better in it because I had to work on myself and realize that Maxie was not coming back, and I had her for that time. People say, are you going to have another dog? Are you going to get another dog? Can't do it. I just can't do it again. So this is something of a disenfranchised grief. It's a disenfranchised. So people think, oh, that's nothing. It wasn't a person. So disenfranchised grief is when a person loses something or someone in their life that is important to them, not important to someone else. It's important to you. That means if it's important to you, it's important to you, and shouldn't measure it, right, to be able to not grieve or grieve because what someone outside of the situation says, right? So, but they either, their loss is not valued, right? My loss with my dog with certain people, it wasn't valued or recognized by other people. It wasn't valued. They called it as nothing. They said it was nothing. It's just a dog. Oh my God. So the grieving is not considered to be what? Listen, socially acceptable way to process grief. I should not have grieved in that way, right? According to what people think. So the instances of disenfranchised grief is extremely subjective, right? And everyone's experience of grief differs. People pass, people still mourn people for a very long time because they can't get past it. They can't get over that hump. And no one has the right to force someone to move on if they're not ready yet, right? So the loss of a relationship or the death of a loved one, whereas another may experience grief, right, at the loss of an idea, a job, a hobby that was tied to their identity. Come on now. It can be a loss of something, right? A job, something you was connected to, and abruptly something happened and it was jerked and pulled away from you. That's a loss, an internal loss, but society does not recognize it or count it as important. So there are some scenarios where someone's grief may be disenfranchised. Let's look at this. The loss of, listen to this, an abusive partner or family member. I have counseled many women in domestic violence and DV, and it is so very hard to get them to a place of the separation of the abuse because that particular scenario and that person has become so wedged in their lives. Once they move away or run away or get away, it's a feeling of loss because they love that person, even though it was a dysfunctional situation. The loss of an estranged or absent or unknown family member. How many people do you know that you might know that are looking for a lost child or a relative that has been gone for years and years and years, and you're sitting in silence wondering, you haven't verbalized it, but you're missing that person, right? And no one's recognizing that that's what you're feeling. The loss of a non-immediate family member, like a cousin or aunt. These are emotions that most people don't see on the surface. Why? Because the person does not really express it that way, but yet they're going through they're silently suffering in this disenfranchised loss. And so the loss of a loved one who was in prison. Now, this is a deep one. Many people have family members for whatever circumstance that have gone to prison with a long prison term or even a year or 2 years or whatever. And in silence, like a wife who had a husband and he got caught up in something or accused of something. And now this person is gone. But most people in the societal form and people around this particular person have no idea of the hell that the person is going through in the sadness and the depression of the loss of that person. What about loss of a loved one due to substance abuse or overdose? These are things that people go through when you go through life, and life keeps happening, right? You just don't go through it and then it's over with. It's a segue of emotions that you have to find your way moving through. And when it's not dealt with and just continues, it has to be dealt with. You need to speak to someone. You need to share with someone when you're dealing with this type of loss. This is different from the ambiguous loss. We talked about the this is different, but it's an ambiguous grief the same way this is a disenfranchised grief. How about the loss of a loved one due to stigmatized conditions such as what? A sickness, an illness, HIV, AIDS. Listen, that's deep right there because people aren't verbalizing it. They're living in the silence and suffering in silence. The loss of a person, someone was in a, listen to this one, private relationship with that others don't know about. You know, the more drive-bys, right? The loss of a person, someone was in a private relationship with that nobody else know about. Now, it don't have to be a drive-by. That was just a little sidebar. But that kind of relationship where you got a group of people, men or women, and you have a certain side relationship or familiarity with someone and they're in your life, but your crew don't know, your village don't know, right? Your tribe don't know about it. It's just you and this person. And they'll have this ongoing thing going on. And that person, for whatever reason, leaves, disappears, is gone. Now, who can you tell? No one knows about this relationship. No one knows about this. So guess what happens? It's what? Disenfranchised loss. You have a loss inside of you that no one understands. No one will ever understand because they weren't privy to the information. They weren't privy to the relationship. Nevertheless, it's a loss. It's a loss. And so these are some of the things that people sit in silence and deal with, maybe because they're ashamed, they don't want to talk about it, or they don't have anyone, a safety net, because you got to share with someone that's a safety net. You can't talk to a chatterbox, right? You can't talk to somebody that just wants to get into your business just to know what's going on, not to offer some help or just to hold your hand or pray with you, cry with you, and get you through a season. It's very hard to find really true friends that are committed to your soul, committed to your spirit, committed to your heartbeat, right? You need people that's committed to you, not what you do, not who you are, not what your title is, but committed to the person of who you are. What about the loss of a community member who may not have been known directly, right? Grieving the harm or loss of community members, including those targeted by hate crimes and police brutality. We know totally about hate crimes. We know about brutality. We know about people suffering in silence, and people don't even realize that it's such a great mourning and loss. It's a loss. Loss of a teacher. How many of you was in school and you had to move on from one teacher to another teacher and you ain't want to go? You went kicking and screaming. I kind of went through a little bit of that maybe a month ago when I called my doctor's office and they said, well, she's left this office and she's gone out on her own practice and we don't know if she takes your health coverage. I panicked immediately. I was like, no, that can't happen. No, I don't want another doctor. Don't give me no referrals. I want my doctor. She's been my doctor for 9 years. And I started getting real anxious. I got really anxious, but thank God I found her. I saw her last week. So, but in that moment, that loss of what? A doctor, a teacher, a coach, a mentor. How many of you had to move on from a particular significant person that was in your life, no matter if it was when you were young, when you were older? That person meant so much to you, right? And they're gone now. They might have passed on. They might have moved to another state. But because you had the tight relationship with them, no one even imagined that you even going through that person is not in contact with you. And you're really, really feeling the loss and the connection of that person. This is life. This is real life. What about loss of a client or patient? I've gone through that. Counseling someone, and it's very hard because I love people so much, and I had to learn how to have boundaries because people get attached to me, I get attached to them. That's why I do short-term counseling, 10 weeks. If you need more, I move you on to someone else. But what about those people that you really get a connection with in counseling? That has happened with me. But in my professionalism, I knew it was time to move them on. And I knew that I missed them. I really missed them and thought about them a lot because I had got connected to them more on a not just a professional level, but I had got connected. I get real connected to women. You know, I just, it's just me and the women. I don't know, I guess because I've walked through so many things, right? I can't take you where I haven't been. And so I get connected to women. I don't know how many spiritual daughters I have, but I love them all. And I love women in general. I love people in general. I love men, but I'm called to women. See, you got to know your lane. When you know your lane, stay in your lane. I can talk and counsel couples and everything, but my lane is women. And so I had a client that I had to move her on, and I really didn't want to, and I had to just let her go. But I felt a sense of loss. It didn't take me under, but I'm trying to show you different levels of feeling the loss, right? Let's see, loss of one's health and mobility or cognitive ability, or that of a loved one. We know what that feels like or what that may be like. Loss of one's possessions or valuables. Oh my, I've lost so many things that meant something to me, being careless with it. And I think about it. I thought about a ring the other day, and I felt I had to get it out of my head because I was getting angry with myself that I wasn't more careful with that particular piece of jewelry that had significant sentimental value to me, right? But I was careless with it, but I still feel the loss of it, right? A material thing. Does it take me under? No, but I'm showing you the different emotions that we go through with disenfranchised grief and loss. Loss of one's home or home country. I know many people who have been uprooted and brought here to these United States of America, to different places. I know they're bringing busloads into New York. They're opening up all these closed down hotels and different places and giving them places to live and everything. And I'm sure they yearn for their country. They're in a place, they don't speak our language, right? They don't speak our language. I remember living in Italy for 6 months, going over there to sing, and I lived there for 6 months. And when I got off the plane, I couldn't read, I didn't understand. No one spoke English. Everything was in fluent Italian. I was like, immediately I felt the loss of my home. I felt lonely and lost because what? Everything that was there was so unfamiliar. I was unfamiliar. And when I finally came home after 6 months of living in Italy, I tell you, when I hit JFK, it was this whole feeling of joy that came back into my heart. But the time that I lived in Italy, in that strange land, was very, very strange and difficult. And it was a lot going on over there. But that's another level of loss, right? Understanding. No one understood, even the girls in the group that I went to join. They didn't really understand the real deepness of what I was feeling, although they had been there for a year already. They had already adjusted. So I'm just trying to pinpoint certain things for you to do a soul search, to understand yourself on another level, and think and ponder about yourself. The grief and being disenfranchised. Listen, the relationship is not recognized. Listen to me. The relationship is not recognized as significant. So the person's grief seems what? Disproportionate. Because it's not important to someone else, they count it as what? Nothing. It's not significant. Sheila, it's not significant what you feel. Why you feel like that? Nobody died. You know, people can be so rude and so insensitive with not being in touch with a human emotion and how we're wired. And there is a lack of social understanding regarding the relationship, making it hard for people to recognize. People need to recognize, and what else? It begins with a V. Validate the person's grief. Validate the person's grief. It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with that other person. The person expresses their grief in a manner that is inconsistent with with expected grieving behaviors or other experiences of grief process. Let me say that again. Disenfranchised grief this is how it's noticed and looked at. The person expresses their grief in a manner that is inconsistent with expected grieving behaviors or others' experience of grief process. It don't look the same. It doesn't look the same. Disenfranchised grief is often experienced by disenfranchised people or populations, including members of different racial, ethnic, religious, ability, and sexual minority groups. This is something that is not talked about a lot. This is something that people be like, oh man, that's why I'm feeling that. Oh wow, that's where I'm at. Suffering in silence on so many levels. If we sometimes, I believe, can put a finger, when people come there, I say, give me a word. Just give me one word. If you can't, if you're so emotional distraught, find one word. Tell me what that one feeling is. If we can find one word to express what we're feeling, then we're on our way. So mental health is grief can cause, mental health can cause depression, feelings of sadness and despair, anger and guilt. You can have physical symptoms, right? So when grief is not recognized, listen, as valid by others, people may start to question their own feelings and feel anger, shame, or guilt for experiencing the grief, because people don't recognize it as the regular so-called telltale grief, right? The person now, what it internalizes on themselves, what happens? And they start feeling angry, shame, and guilt for experiencing the grief. Because people, when you let them get in your head, it causes you to, you got to turn the voices off. If the voices is not the right voice, you got to turn the voices off. Hallelujah. The validation of the grief process allows a person to experience the cycle of grief. The cycle of grief. The cycle. Let's run through it really, really quickly. The cycle of grief. This is so important to understand and know, because someone could have passed in your life, or you've gone through something some years ago, and you still may be stuck. You still may be stuck in a space and a time that you can't shake it. You can't get away from it. I know, listen, when my mom passed, my dad died 8 months before my mom. But my mom, I love my dad, but my dad wasn't in the house with us for a long time, right? And it was my mom who was the breadwinner. It was my mom who gave me the jewels. It was my mom who, shared everything with us, right? And so when my mom died, I could not get a handle. I tell you, I couldn't get a handle. So the 5 stages of grief is a theory developed by a psychiatrist, right? And her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, right? So it suggests some things. It suggests, number 1, denial. And the first stage of grieving process is denial. It is denial. I can't believe this happened. How could this happen, right? It helps us minimize, the denial helps us minimize, right, the overwhelming pain of loss. It helps us, the denial, not believing it. I don't want to believe it. I'm not receiving it. And as we process the reality of our loss, we are also trying to what? Survive emotional pain. The survival of emotional pain is no joke. It's very, very hard to do. It can be hard to believe we have lost an important person in our lives, especially when we may have just spoken with them the previous week or even the previous day. I had just spoken to my mother that morning. So what are you telling me? She's no longer here. What are you saying to me? The denial process, my God. During this stage in grieving, our reality has shifted completely. It's shifted. It can make our minds time to adjust. We have to give our minds time to adjust to this new reality, right? We reflect on the experiences we shared with the person we lost, and we might find ourselves wondering how to move forward in life without this person. I don't know if you've ever been through this. I've been through it more than one time. Seemed like death just knocks on my door all the time since I was 17 years old. Just knock, 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 another death. Knock, knock. Every time I had one of my kids, my 3 girls, each one of them, somebody died while I was pregnant. Somebody died the day my daughter was born, my husband was killed. The day my oldest daughter was born, my aunt passed away. And the day that my youngest daughter was born, I was pregnant. My mom never saw her. So This kind of, I've dealt with loss, I've dealt with death on, and I can go on and on with a list. So I've dealt with all types of loss and not knowing how to segue. And at a young, very young age, what do you do with that? And no one even thought about giving me counselor. I was traumatized, PTSD, all that stuff, right? Didn't know what it was and what I was feeling. So I'm telling you, these are things that we have to take care of. The second one is anger. The stage anger is grieving. List the second stage in grieving is anger. We are trying to what? Adjust. We're trying to adjust to the reality and likely experiencing extreme emotional discomfort. I don't believe it. It's denial. I don't believe it. But then we in this anger with this thing done set in on us. It's sitting on us. I don't believe it. And there is so much to process that anger may feel like it allows us an emotional outlet. So people could yell at people, just spew, anger. And then because this is the only way. So it allows them and gives them permission pretty much to act out in this way because this whole thing has rocked their world. Keep in mind that anger does not require us to be very vulnerable. However, I heard you. It may feel more socially acceptable than admitting we are scared, right? You're scared when this happens. You lost someone. Anger allows us to express emotion with less fear or judgment of rejection because we act out, because we're at this second level of losing, of grief, the 5 stages of grief we're talking about. And then we move to this one, the bargaining. This is the one where we're bargaining. We're coping with loss. Someone's sick and someone's not going to make it. It isn't unusual to feel so desperate, right? That you are willing to do anything to alleviate, oh God, alleviate this pain, minimize this feeling. Lord, take this pain away. During this stage in grieving, you may begin to bargain to change the situation, agreeing to do something in return for being relieved of the pain you feel. This is a dangerous place to be in when you trade off and bargain just to feel better. You may trade off some other stuff. You may jump into some alcohol. You may bargain with this. Well, I'm doing this because you may even talk to God. When bargaining starts to take place, we often direct our requests. Most times it's like to God, to your higher power, or something bigger than us that we may be able to influence a different outcome. In other words, bargaining, like God, if you could heal this person, Lord, I will turn my life around. I'll turn my life around, Lord, if you just heal my child, heal my son. I promise to be better. If you will let this person live, please, Lord, let this person live. Bargaining. This is a bargaining. This is a grief stage. I'll never get angry again if you stop him or her from dying or leaving me. This is a bargaining. We're desperate for change. There is an acute awareness of our humanness. Listen, we are human. And in this stage of grieving, when we realize that there is nothing, absolutely nothing that we can do to influence the change or create a better end result, bargaining comes from a feeling of helplessness. And it gives us a perceived sense of control over something that feels so out of control. It is common to recall times when we've said things with the loved one, when we think about things that we've done with the person. We move on to depression. During our experience of processing grief, there comes a time when our imaginations calm down. Been there, done that, wore the t-shirt, got the card, the bumper sticker, or you name it. I got the stamp, I got the hat, I got everything. Been there, done that. During our experience of processing grief, there comes a time when our imaginations is sort of calms down and we slowly start to look at the reality of the present situation. Bargaining no longer feels like an option, and we face with what is happening. This is the acceptance, right? The bargaining is no longer in that stage. In this stage of grieving, we start to feel the loss of the loved one more abundantly. Our panic begins to subside because now we're sitting and we realize this is real. This is real. The fog, I know about that fog. It becomes clear. And the present state is unavoidable. So in those moments, we tend to pull inward as the sadness grows. This is the dangerous place. We might find ourselves retreating, been there, being less sociable, been there, and reaching out less, definitely been there, to others that we are what we're going through, sharing what we're going through. And although this is a very natural stage, right, in the grieving process, dealing with depression after the loss of a loved one can be extremely isolating and one of the most difficult stages. Then we get to acceptance. The last of the 5 stages of grief is acceptance. And the reason why we kind of took a little train over to the 5 stages of grief, we were at the other stop over there. We'll be back over there in a second. We come to a place of acceptance. It is not that we no longer feel the pain of loss. Instead, we are no longer what? Resisting the reality of our situation. We are not struggling to make it something different because we can't change it. We're powerless. But how long does it take someone to get to this place of acceptance? Everyone has a different stopwatch on. No one can rush a person to this place. Sadness and regret can still be present in this phase. Do I still have sadness and regret? Of course I do. Have I learned to manage it? I have, right? Have you learned to manage it? And that's all you can do is manage your emotions. The emotional survival tactics of denial, bargaining, and anger are less likely to be present during the phase of this grieving process. How long? How long? I know we say how long, not long. Listen, no one can tell you how to grieve. No one can tell you you shouldn't grieve. So we back now where we're going to end on this. We're going to end on the disenfranchised grief when no one seems to understand your loss. And I want to put up this little clip right here so that you can see this. My internet is acting slow. There we go. It's slow. Let's see. Oh, it's there for you, but not there for me. Okay. Hold on. It's not behaving for me right now. Okay, here we go. So, it's not staying up. Coping with disenfranchised grief. What is disenfranchised grief? Disenfranchised grief is a type of grief that is not openly acknowledged or socially supported. So seek out help. Grief, types of disenfranchised grief. Grief that is not acknowledged by society, such as the loss of a pet or an extramarital affair. Grief that is not openly mourned or publicly supported, such as miscarriage or abortion. Oh God, I've counseled so many women with the abortion thing. And what a grief that they go through. A silent, living in silence. Who are they going to tell? Who are they going to tell? So that's something they live with. So they need counseling to get past that. Grief that is not recognized or stigmatized, such as death by suicide or overdose. Why is it important to talk about disenfranchised grief? Disenfranchised grief is often not acknowledged by society, which can lead to feelings of isolation. Having a support system is, what's the word there? Crucial. Allow yourself to feel emotions. Seek support from someone who understands. Engage in self-care and activities such as exercise and meditation, prayer. You just have to, you don't have to. It'd be nice if you try to push yourself from this space. Feeling alone in your grief can be overwhelming. Seek out support groups, counseling, or therapy to help you navigate through your emotions. So these are many, and there are many resources available to help you cope with disenfranchised grief, including support groups and therapy and online forums. Don't hesitate to reach out. All you have to do is just type in disenfranchised support groups, and you'll be able to find some people and some folks that has gone through and is going through what you're going through. So I want you to know that it's just in the circumstances of your loss. Listen, lead others to judge or criticize you. You might get the message that you are supposed to grieve alone, and you're not. Unfortunately, some losses draw more stigma than compassion. The reaction of others might make you feel ashamed or embarrassed instead of comforted. Mhm. I want you to know that this is something in reality that we all might have to cross over, or we have crossed over. It's absolutely normal to grieve the loss of anyone you had a meaningful relationship with, including a best friend, an extended family member, a classmate, even an ex. People also sometimes assume certain groups lack the capacity to mourn, including children, people with cognitive impairment or loss of function, people with developmental disabilities, people with serious mental health condition, grief that doesn't align with social norms. That's what we're talking about, and that's what we've talked about tonight. And I hope that this has given you some insight. I hope that you understand a little bit more about disenfranchised grief. And now I'll turn to my comments over here in the chat. Let's see what we have. They're greeting each other. Shah's greeting me. Welcome, Shah. It's your first time here, I think. Welcome. Nice to have you. Nice to have you. We got Lady Navoa in the house. Lady Navoa in the house. And yes, your village sisters. For sure. And Shaw 144 says that I'm so excited to hear this stream today. I am excited that you are here. Let's see what this wonderful one said. Oh, when my parakeet passed, I drove her home, was in college to bury her. Rest in love. Can see? Perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. Wait, I have not mentioned how beautiful those colors are. Pastor Sheila, your hair is here on the. I didn't read that before I put it up. She is too much. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys, I love you guys. Oh, okay. All righty. You thought so too? All right, I did something a little cute tonight. Thank you so much, ladies. You guys are wonderful. And she says, you are doing an amazing job explaining this. Thank you so much. Oh, wow. All right. Listen, it's been great. It's been an awesome time here tonight with you at the Counseling Corner. I had a wonderful time. I hope that this enlightened you in some kind of way. I hope that it touched your heart if you've ever dealt with something that in this category, right? I hope that it caused you to stop, pause, and reflect, right? And to know that you have to continue to dig deep inside of yourself, dig deep, stay in tune, stay in touch with yourself, stay in touch with yourself. Please do that, because you could get away from you. You can easily get away from you. I don't want you to get away from you. I want you to stay sober mind with a sober mind and stay in touch with you, because life is going to keep happening. Situations are going to continue to knock on your door. And, I just pray that you'll be able to navigate through some of these things that we have absolutely no control over, no control, right? But what you do have control over is how you respond. If you've gone through something and you're still in a space of mourning or you're in grieving, please reach out to someone. You may think no one can help you, Let me tell you, when someone has been where you are, they can give you some pointers how they got to the other side, right? If you're in a new place of struggling in any kind of pain or depression, I want you to know that the counseling corner is here for you. The counseling corner is here for you. And it's been a wonderful time with you. But before I leave, I want to play something for you that I need to put up really quickly, because something, I have to bless people who bless me. I have to honor people who honor me. And so just take a look at this. I want to thank you all, the sponsors, and those of you who sow into me and into this channel. It's no way. I know people don't want me to give them the hoopla and the sha-da-da-da, but I have to give you the sha-da-da-da and the bravo for helping me here at Bravo to get, lighting and mics, and, soon I'll have a new backdrop and just different things to make the channel go forward. I am almost, thanks to all of you, we are almost at 500 subs. Listen, we are almost at 500. I wish my button was working. I have all those buttons. I know you can't hear them. I don't know why you can't hear them. I can hear them. I don't know. I have to get that fixed. But I want to say thank you so much. We are up to 500 subs, and then I'll be able to be monetized behind that, and membership and all the wonderful things that you can do once you get 500 subscribers. And so thank you, all of you who have helped me to get to this point. We are rocking and rolling. We are moving and grooving. Yes, we are. I'm dating myself, right? I'm dating myself, but I'm so happy that the channel is growing. We have some great things in store for you. We have another great Karen in Ghana will be on to talk about Africa on another level. Tomorrow, I have this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful photographer to the stars. And I met him years ago, and his name is Ronnie Wright, and he is the photographer. I mean, there's not one star he has not been on the red carpet or wherever and taking photos. We're going to talk about his journey. We're going to talk about how he got to where he is today, and some of the wonderful people that he has taken photos of. And we're going to have a good time on Wednesday at the Kabod. And just, stay tuned for more of what we're doing. We have a lot of different things coming up. If you haven't saw the movie Stevie, that I am, the animated movie Stevie, that's on YouTube, the producer and writer, Lisa Banks. You can head on over on YouTube and go to Lisa Banks, and you could just type in Stevie, the movie Stevie, and you'll see the animated movie that I had a pretty big part in. And so I want you to tune in on Thursday, with Dawn B. She's back in the house lining up her guests, Dawn B and Friends, on Thursday on the Bravo Network. So it's a great day here, and I pray that you are so well. And I'll see you guys soon. Thank you so very much for being here. I hope that do I have to play this? Do I have this? Do I have to hit this button? Do I have to put this up, or has it been done already? Do I have to do it? I better do it. Listen, remember, when nothing changes, nothing changes. And what you got to do, you got to keep it moving. Until I see you again, stay well, stay blessed. Ciao. Now, how do I get out of here? Let's do a little soft closing. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye now.